So what is difference between latch and flip-flop? In this presentation we are going to find out the answer for this common question in digital electronics. The circuit here you can see is a familiar one to you. We have already discussed it. It is your SR latch. Okay, there is no control input given to it, and in this case, when there is no control input, the inputs S and R can be changed accidentally or intentionally. Therefore, this circuit is not suitable for use. So we need to introduce a control input by which we can decide that when we have to change S or R, so that our output Q and Q complement will be stored until we have to use it. So let's see how we can introduce a control input to this circuit. We need two more NAND gates for this purpose. The first NAND gate will go here, and the output of this NAND gate will connect to the S. The second NAND gate will go here, and the output of this will connect to R. Okay, now let's see what are the inputs of these two NAND gates. There is one common input to the gates, and it is your control input. Okay, the other input for this first NAND gate is your S now, and I will call this as star. Okay, and the second input to this NAND gate is now R, and I will call it as R star. The working of the circuit we will see in the next presentation when we will discuss SR flip-flop. But for now, you need to know the difference between the latch and the flip-flops. So let me tell you one thing. This circuit that I made can be used as a latch as well as a flip-flop. Let's see how we can use this circuit for the latch. The only thing that decides whether the circuit is acting as a latch or as a flip-flop is this control input. If this control input is not a clock, just enable enable. Whenever this is high, the latch will operate. Okay, so when this is enable, it means that it is what? It is level triggered. It is sensitive to the level triggering. Okay, what I mean is that, let me draw first enable. If enable is something like this, I have taken a random enable signal, then this circuit will be operational when the enable is high for this period, for this period, and for this period, and the circuit will not be operational when the enable is low for this period, for this period, and for this period. It's a very simple thing. Whenever this is the case, it will act as the latch. Okay, now what happened in the case of flip-flops? But before actually going to the flip-flops, let me first explain you why this circuit is operational when the enable is high. It's very simple. If I write the value for S star, then it will be S complement or En complement. So if the value of En is equal to 1, okay, which means S star is equal to S complement, and when the value of En is equal to 0, or when it is low, the value of S star is equal to what? 1. Similarly, R star will also be equal to 1 because enable is given as the input to both of this NAND gate, and in whenever there is SR latch with NAND gate, 1 1 is what? Your memory. So whatever the value or the state stored in this latch is stored until we will change En. So that's why we call it SR latch with controlled input. Okay, so this is the working for this, and this case when there is enable, we will call it as latch. Now let's see when this circuit will act as the flip-flop. It will act as flip-flop when we are having clock in place of enable. So the clock, you already know in the last presentation, the working for the clock, the duty cycle is 50% for the clock. This is your clock, but it will be flip-flop only when there is the triggering we call as the edge triggering, which means when the clock goes from low to high or high to low. During this period only the circuit is operational, and in that case we call it as the flip-flop. So at the last, I want to give the conclusion for the difference between the latch and the flip-flop. The conclusion is that latch is level sensitive. Okay, whenever there is input, it will check the input. okay, if it is enable. Okay, but in case of flip-flop, it will check for the input and the circuit will be operational only when the clock is changing from high to low or from low to high. So this is the difference between the latch and the flip-flop. I hope you got it. In the next presentation, we will start with our SR flip-flop, because now we are having everything that we require to move on with our flip-flop. So this is all for this presentation. See you in the next one.